The Duggar family is growing again. Another baby. Another announcement. Another wave of headlines. But while David Duggar and his wife Abbie beam with excitement over their third child, the bigger story isn't about one pregnancy. It's about a dynasty that just won't stop multiplying, even as its reputation continues to collapse under the weight of scandal, crime, and controversy. So the question everyone's asking is simple: is this baby boom just coincidence, or is it part of a deliberate strategy to drown out the darkness that haunts the Duggar name? Because let's be honest, when you look closer, the timing of these announcements feels just a little too perfect. The baby boom of 2025 to 2026. David Duggar and Abbie dropped the big news on Instagram: baby number 3 is on the way, due in early 2026. They posted the kind of sweet, simple caption that fans expect: "We've been keeping a little secret. Baby number 3 arriving early 2026." Cue the flood of well wishes from Duggar siblings. Jana Duggar left heart eye emojis. Jana, David's twin sister, chimed in with "Congrats, so excited for you all." But here's the twist. Jana herself had just announced her own first pregnancy in August. After years of silence, after fans speculated endlessly about why she was the last unmarried and childless Duggar daughter at 35, she suddenly drops the news: she and her husband Stephen Wisman are expecting their first child, due January 2026. Now, add that up. Abbie expecting in early 2026. Jana expecting in January 2026. 6 other Duggar babies already born this year. That makes 39 grandchildren for Jim Bob and Michelle. 39. And with a family like this, that number is guaranteed to keep climbing. But here's where things get suspicious. A family built on babies. To understand why this baby boom raises eyebrows, you have to rewind. The Duggar empire was built on one thing: endless children. Back in the TLC glory days of 19 kids and counting, the entire brand was based on Jim Bob and Michelle's ability to produce an army of kids under the banner of Christian family values. Their pitch was simple: the bigger the family, the stronger the faith. Babies weren't just personal joy, they were marketing. They were the storyline. It worked. For years, audiences were fascinated. A family this big seemed wholesome, unique, even miraculous. But behind the cameras, critics whispered that this wasn't just a lifestyle choice, it was ideology. The Duggars were deeply tied to the Quiverfull movement, a religious belief system that teaches followers to have as many children as possible as arrows in God's quiver. In other words, babies weren't just blessings. They were weapons in a cultural war. So when you see the family continuing to multiply even as their empire burns, it doesn't look random. It looks like the same old strategy, a dynasty preserving itself one pregnancy at a time. The numbers game. The Duggar family's reputation has taken brutal hits since Counting On was cancelled in 2021. Josh Duggar's crimes and conviction in 2021 shattered the public image of America's most wholesome family. TLC cut ties, advertisers ran, and the empire Jim Bob built seemed to crumble overnight. And yet, even with the cameras gone, the Duggar numbers keep growing. 6 new babies in 1 year. Nearly 40 grandchildren. Pregnancy announcements perfectly timed to keep their names circulating on social media. Coincidence? Or is the baby boom their new PR strategy, a way to reframe the Duggar name not around scandal, but around new life, fresh hope, and the next generation? Because every time the headlines threaten to return to Josh Duggar's crimes, or Jim Bob's questionable role in covering up the past, another happy story about a Duggar baby conveniently pops up. It's almost as if babies are being used as a shield. Jim Bob and Michelle's grip. Even though the older Duggar kids are now adults, married, and raising families of their own, Jim Bob and Michelle still loom in the background. Former insiders have alleged that Jim Bob controls not just finances, but also the timing of announcements, access to media, and the overall image of the family. So when we see these baby announcements stacked together, some fans wonder, is this organic timing, or a coordinated PR plan led by Jim Bob himself? It wouldn't be the first time. Former Duggar daughters-in-law have hinted that major life announcements were sometimes delayed or staged to fit TV schedules or family strategy. If that's true, then these pregnancies are less about individual couples, and more about keeping the Duggar machine alive. Public fascination versus backlash. Of course, fans of the Duggars, especially those who still hold on to the idealized version of the family from 19 kids and counting, flood the comments with congratulations. But the critics? They see something much darker. For years, people have accused the Duggars of being obsessed with reproduction, turning women into baby machines under the guise of faith. And now, with the scandals exposed, many believe these new announcements are less about celebrating life and more about continuing a harmful cycle. The backlash online is harsh. How many babies will it take to erase Josh's crimes? Do these women have any choice in the matter, or is this just Duggar culture repeating itself? Every pregnancy announcement feels like damage control. The divide is sharp. On one side, people who see the Duggars as victims of cancel culture, unfairly punished for one family member's crimes. On the other, those who see every new pregnancy as a symptom of control, manipulation, and a refusal to face reality. And that brings us back to the timing. Shadows of scandal. No matter how many babies are born, one shadow looms over all of it: Josh Duggar. In 2021, Josh was sentenced to more than 12 years in prison for child sexual abuse material charges. The case dragged the entire family through the mud. It wasn't just about Josh. It was about what Jim Bob and Michelle knew, what they ignored, and what they allowed. And that's what makes every new Duggar announcement feel so calculated. Because the family knows they can't erase what Josh did. They can't bring back their TLC shows. They can't restore the old image. But what they can do, and what they seem to be doing, is flood the public with happy headlines, forcing people to focus on babies instead of prison sentences. It's a strategy that feels as old as Hollywood itself: distract, redirect, rebrand. But the cracks are showing. The fallout on siblings. Josh's crimes didn't just destroy his own life, they sent shockwaves through his siblings. Jill Duggar has distanced herself from the family, speaking openly in her memoir about the toxic control of her parents. Jana Duggar also left the family's strict rules behind, publishing her own book that cast doubt on her upbringing. And yet, while some siblings rebel and speak out, others seem to double down. They keep marrying young, keep having babies, keep posting carefully curated family photos. It creates a strange split screen: on one side, ex-Duggars exposing the darkness. On the other, loyal Duggars churning out good news stories to keep the brand alive. Jana Duggar's long silence breaks. For years, Jana was known as the Cinderella Duggar. The unmarried, childless daughter who stayed home while her siblings married young, had babies, and followed the family script. Fans speculated endlessly about her. Some believed she secretly rejected her parents' strict rules, others thought she was trapped. Conspiracy theories even suggested Jim Bob deliberately kept her at home to care for younger siblings. Then suddenly, at 35, Jana announces she's married and pregnant. The timing couldn't be more suspicious. Josh's appeal denied. More Duggar criticism trending online. And out of nowhere, the lost Duggar steps into the spotlight with her first pregnancy, conveniently shifting the narrative again. Fans were happy for her, but many also couldn't ignore the obvious: the announcement felt like a carefully timed move in the Duggar PR machine. Why Jana's news feels staged? Dig deeper, and it's not just timing. It's the way the announcement was framed. A polished Instagram post. A carefully worded caption. Comments from siblings that felt rehearsed. For years, Jana avoided the spotlight. Why choose now, of all times, to step back in? Some fans think it's genuine. That she's finally living her own life. Others suspect Jim Bob and Michelle orchestrated the reveal to remind the world, even the holdout Duggar is back on track, married, pregnant, and producing the next generation. And that suspicion keeps fueling debate. The future of the Duggar dynasty. So where does this leave the Duggars? They don't have a TLC show anymore. They don't have the mainstream backing they once enjoyed. But with nearly 40 grandchildren and counting, they have numbers on their side. And that's where speculation turns even darker. Could the Duggars be planning a comeback? Maybe not on cable television, but on YouTube. On Instagram. On TikTok. Imagine a new generation of Duggar kids, growing up on camera, creating content, pulling in views, all while their parents cash in. It's not far-fetched. In fact, it feels inevitable. Because if there's one thing the Duggars have proven, it's that they know how to turn family life into a brand. The question is whether the public will ever let them escape their past. What critics fear, the Quiverfull agenda. The Duggars' constant expansion isn't just a quirk of family planning. It's rooted in ideology. The Quiverfull movement teaches that children are arrows in a spiritual battle, and that Christian families must have as many as possible to outnumber secular culture. Critics argue this mindset strips women of autonomy, pressures couples into endless pregnancies, and turns children into pawns of ideology. When you view the Duggar baby boom through this lens, it doesn't look like simple family growth. It looks like a generational strategy, one that ensures the Duggar name and the Duggar beliefs will live on no matter how bad the scandals get. Could more scandals be coming? If history has shown anything, it's that the Duggar name attracts controversy. With nearly 40 grandchildren being raised under the same strict system, many wonder, will the next generation repeat the cycle or rebel against it? And with so many moving parts, more scandals feel inevitable. Could financial corruption be exposed? Could more siblings break away and reveal secrets? Could new allegations surface against other family members? The Duggar empire may be wounded, but it's far from quiet. Conclusion: babies as a shield. The Duggar family is now synonymous with scandal. Josh's crimes destroyed the image of purity Jim Bob tried to sell America. The family's credibility is gone. But here's what hasn't changed: their ability to multiply. Every pregnancy announcement feels like an attempt to rebrand. Every new baby is framed as hope, joy, and new beginnings. And yet, the shadow of scandal is never far away. So is this just natural growth from a famously large family? Or is it something more deliberate, a calculated baby boom meant to drown out controversy, shift headlines, and preserve a dynasty built on control? One thing's for sure. 2026 will bring more Duggar babies, more headlines, and more uncomfortable questions. Because the Duggars may have lost their TV empire. But their dynasty? That's far from over.